The pirates were getting into the 100-yard range and decided to pull off. My barrel was starting to get hot, but I know my AR could take several hundred more rounds without issues like this, since it was only semi-auto. I couldn't fire semi-auto fast enough to do damage to the internals as long as I kept my AR clean. Although, being a piston system, it could get pretty dirty and work up for a long time anyway. The kill zone had, however, got too hot for the pirates. We were able to rain fire down on them, and they weren't able to do anything of note to us as long as we kept their heads down. That was pretty straightforward from up here, as long as we had ammunition. I dropped my third mag and slammed my fourth mag, leaving me with 3 mags left. I didn't care anymore at this point. The pirates were in the sweet spot for the kill zone. Eyes seemed to react the same way. In fact, in some ways it was better for him because they were getting into an even better region as far as his situation was concerned. The 100-footer began turning around, and I went to check on the other 8-footer to make sure it was turning as well, and it wasn't. I put a few rounds into it to make sure they got the memo. I heard Eyes dropping his third mag and getting his fourth mag out. This left him with 2 full mags in reserve. We were barely pulling this through. We were going to make it count. I immediately got my aim back on the 100-footer because I had a feeling when they turned we might be getting a face full of barrels. Either that or they would have their rear end exposed. I wanted to unleash everything we had at their rear end. That way they wouldn't know that we were at the end of our supply of ammo this time. As the ship turned, I noticed a rifleman. I quickly put rounds as close to him as I could, and thankfully he took cover. The boat completed turning, and I didn't see the rifleman again. I began shooting at the rear of the boat, with the remainder of my fourth mag a little slower, but deliberately. I was trying to find targets of opportunity. I checked for a brief moment, and the 8-footer and all the jet skiers were retreating for my side. I got another idea and started trying to put rounds in the engines of the boats. I didn't think I could actually damage the engines themselves, but thought maybe I could damage the fuel tanks. I tried to put a couple rounds in the 8-footer's engine, but it was already getting back out to 200 meters again. The other 8-footer that had bugged out earlier was already well out the 300-meter range. I dumped the rest of my fourth mag into the back of the 100-footer in its engine compartment, then swapped mags out. I had 2 mags left. I heard Eyes drop a mag and slam in a new one somewhere in there too. That meant he had slammed in his 5th mag with 1 left in reserve. His firing slowed, so I assumed his targets were moving out of range. I still wanted to put more bullets into that boat, but I didn't want to waste my 5th mag. I had no idea if I was doing anything. You'd think I'd see smoke or something if I was making hits on the engine or fuel. Eyes had stopped firing, but I started slowly and methodically firing into the 100-footer. I'd take a breath, exhale, take a few shots. Then I'd noticed that Eyes started doing the same thing. His shots weren't too far off. That was the great thing about 9mm, that if you were aiming for a car size, you actually could hit 300 meters if you absolutely had to. The target was larger than car size and still within 300 meters. We both slowly and methodically shot at the 100-footer until they all reached the 300-meter range. Then they stopped and turned around and waited. That just about emptied the mag I had, which put me on my last mag, so I swapped him out and Eyes did the same. He dropped his 5th mag and slammed in his final mag. I dug through my backpack for 9mm, and there wasn't very much left. I slid the box over to him so he could start reloading. I got out my box of what little 5.56 I had left and started quietly humming my song. It wasn't much, and I was soon finished. Funny enough, most of my mags still had a single round left, as my brain had learned long ago to count rounds without me even trying. I guess in my firefight, my brain had been telling me I was dry, and I'd been doing tactical reloads the whole time without realizing it. I poked my head up and thought I saw a little smoke coming from one of the boats, but thought maybe it was my imagination. I wasn't going to count on anything. I was worried at this point if I put my head up that I was going to get sniped. Regardless, they weren't going to be doing that plan again. They were going to assume we still had the same amount of ammo and try something else. They lost too many people and ships to bluff that again. Our only hope is that we had scrounged enough ammo out of these boxes and that we got some lucky shots off and that they don't just sit out there and snipe us. I'm sure not poking my head up again, though. I clicked the safety back on for my AR. I could hear the pirate vessels idling. I looked over at Eyes, and he was shaking a little bit, but trying to stay still. I shuffled my backpack to get his attention and startled him. Seems like the adrenaline was starting to wear off, and he wasn't taking it well. I made a motion with my hands as if to say, "I'm coming over." He gave an okay sign with his hands. I shuffled over with my backpack and gave him a bottled water. Told him to sip it slowly, which he did. He had finished loading his mags with the remaining loose 9mm that was in the box. I took the empty box and put it back in my backpack. I started trying to talk to him. "So they came in a wedge this time. That didn't work so well for them, did it?" He let out a nervous chuckle, then spoke. "Not so good, no. I decided that I was probably assigned to the second largest boat on my side, so that's what I opened up on first and took it out. I couldn't hit the smallest boats at all. I didn't bother with the jet skis. Every time I saw someone pop up on that huge boat, I would pop at it and try to keep them down. They kept trying to get their heads up, but I wouldn't let them." "Yeah, I saw that," I added. "Exact same thing happened on my side, but you're okay and I'm okay, and I estimate we maybe got a third of them, including their two second largest vessels. Maybe a few hits on the big one." I kept trying to put positive spins on it, even though I knew at this point we were essentially running out of time. All they had to do was... Then they stopped idling and started fanning out. "What are they doing?" Eyes asked. "Well, they know how many of us there are. They know our capacity. I'd say they're going to spread out and envelop us. They know we can't cover a 90-degree spread coming at us that fast. There'll be enough of them to board, and that'll be that," I answered as thoughtfully as I could. "What's your plan for this?" Eyes asked. "Well, generally, you try to pull them back into where their numbers don't count for anything and funnel them into another ambush. We were able to whittle them down enough to where it's feasible, and we don't give them anything to shoot at until it's too late. We would have to draw them in close enough to the ship to where they're huddled back up again, but the problem is they regain a lot of their advantages at that point as well," Eyes said. "So they'll have jet skis circling around, though, so how do we stay undetected? We can't be up here and be able to attack down there. We have to be down there, but we'll be vulnerable, and most of the bottom floor is outdoors and visible by at least one side. They'll be able to see in the tinting somewhat from some angles since the sun is starting to get higher in the sky." I responded, "You're right, but there is a spot on the first floor where they have no vision at all inside the kitchen. They can only board from one spot, and it's nearby the kitchen. The jet skiers can go around all day and never spot us if we're ducked down in the kitchen. Then when they begin to board, we can spring out and get them at their weakest. That's when they're trying to dock. They will be tethered up to the ship and have nowhere and no way to run." I admitted that actually sounded better in my head. If they tethered the 100-footer, then it would be like tethering a boat anchor to us, and we'd be overran. I don't think they'll risk their main ship immediately because they don't know that the Fear engine isn't recharged. Maybe there's just enough skepticism in the back of their mind to where they'll let some of the 8-footers go first, which will let us pick them off. We'll go prone when we advance, so we won't be a target for anyone else. In fact, nobody else will even know where the shots are coming from." I just really liked that idea. He smiled and nodded. He saw the same glimmer of hope I did, that there was actually an extremely slim chance of saving the ship. Maybe we could fend off an 8-footer, then hide or something. Maybe even capture a few weapons. Hold out a little bit longer, fall back to the hull. Hope the Fear engine was charged enough to shoo them away. I didn't think it was enough time, though. I think he said it took days for the prototype to recharge to max, especially since he fully blasted me with it. Could we hold out in the hull for days, or would they figure it out with so many people scouring and tearing apart the ship? My friends could come today, but if we didn't hold the ship, they could walk into an ambush. Or is it more likely they would just say to hell with it and burn the ship down with us and the cat inside? I pushed the negativity out of my mind. Okay, we have a plan. The exit phrase is going to be parrot again, since we didn't have to use it the last time and we're still on the same op. Eyes nodded. It sounded like the pirates had completed their fanning out. Eyes gave me back the water bottle that he had finished and said thanks. He had calmed down a lot, which was good.